Welcome to the Say Yes Movement podcast with Heather and John, where we help you with your personal and professional growth, helping you say yes to all the scary stuff. Hey, Heather, how are you this
Oh,
morning?
John, I'm feeling so accomplished and fulfilled and inspired, and just like every word that is just filling my heart with joy is
Yeah.
how I woke up this morning with immense gratitude. And it's because last night, me and you hosted our first Say Yes Speakers event, and it was amazing. How
Yeah.
are you feeling this morning?
Yeah. Well, I'm feeling a little tired to tell you the truth. Is when we put on something like that, our hearts go into it, all of our energy goes into it. So yes, I'm tired from that perspective, but I am energized, I am motivated, I am inspired just from what we heard last night. Like just the speakers, the connections, even the people in the audience were just amazing. Everybody coming together, connecting, the laughs. I don't think I've ever laughed as much as I did, as I did last night. It was kind of crazy. And listen, one of our attendees is on the call with us. Roger, good morning. Thank
Good
you.
morning, Roger.
Listen, the hugs. It was just so amazing to be in a space where everybody is just supportive, right? Like it was
Yeah.
just so amazing, so amazing.
Well, and it's why we do this, John. It's, when me and you first came up with the idea that let's broadcast a couple of our own personal coaching calls because there's just such rich content that we wanted to share. I had no idea that it would lead to over 100 episodes on our podcast, a LinkedIn live show 3 times a week, and then a speakers event where other people are sharing the Say Yes story and their personal Say Yes story. And there was tears last night, there was hugs last night, there was absolute love, but all of the human emotions, and that's the beauty of it. And it's in fact why we do what we do, John. We put out an amazing goal to impact 1 million people, and last night there was 50 of our closest friends impacting each other. So the ripple effect has started. It's we've just dropped the stone and now it's growing. It feels so amazing.
Yeah, no, listen, there's something to be said about being in a room and, I'm choking up as I say this, just to be in a room of love, right? Like love and not in a romantic way, but just love in a human way, right? And what I felt last night was just love, like just even this morning, just feeling the love from the community, feeling the love from the comments that people have been posting. I even going through some of the posts I've seen this morning. Roger, thank you. Beautiful post this morning about what you saw last night. Like it's just love, right? Like it's and how many times can you say that and just experience something like that? And
Uh,
that to me, like it's just like wow. Like
well, I
it's
think
still blowing me away.
I want to talk about this love thing because it is a secret sauce. And
Mm,
in the workplace people will say, oh, you can't say that, love can't be there, and actually love needs to be there. It's one of those ingredients that's missing from so many teams and so many communities, and it's because either people don't love themselves, they don't love what they do, or they're not connected to the bigger vision of the company. And when people, and we teach this in our confident communicator class, no one wants you to fail. And I felt that so much last night. It was love, it was energy from the audience, but it was, all of my nervousness that was happening just a few hours before the event started just dissipated as I looked at the faces and eyes of love in front of me. And that is a gift. And so I just want to
mm.
say thank you to everyone that came out last night for that gift. But I also want to invite people to think about, how do you bring love to everything you do? And are you giving love when you go to events? Are you giving love to the people on your team? Are you freely able to express those feelings for yourself? Because when that happens, magic happens. And we had 4 amazing speakers, and I have downloads still coming through my body, through my head. But I'd love, John, like to get your feedback on some of those
Mm.
takeaways, because Crystal, Christina, Alan, Tara, our speakers of last night, just were phenomenal.
Yeah. No, I listen. Like their stories are still ringing through my head. It's just wow. I'm just gonna take a second. I just also want to say good morning to Moise, who's with us on the call. Listen, it's great to have you here. We missed you live in person. We would have loved to have you there in person. but I know you're a little bit further away, so that's okay. But yeah, no, just from the download from yesterday, just what was different. And I've been to other speaker events, and you and I, as we were brainstorming this idea of bringing this out to the world, we wanted to do it a little bit differently. And one of the things that we really got to do is we really got to slow down the pace, right? Like typically when you go to a speaker event, speakers are kind of rushing through. They're doing like 5 to 6 minutes. They do the talk to get off stage. Next speaker's on. But what we got to see yesterday is really diving into some of those stories, right? Getting into those little special moments within the story. And that's something that I know you and I wanted to bring to the world. It wasn't just about them being on stage sharing their say yes. And they had, I loved it what Christina said, you have to say no to say yes to yourself. Like it was just special moments where it's like, and she's like, I find it ironic that I'm here talking about saying no to say yes. So it's so cool. It's such a great combination. But just, giving and then doing the interviews afterwards, right? Like we having and diving in a little bit into their stories and sharing that with the rest of the audience. And then giving people the opportunity to interact with one another. Like that part, like I just watching people go back up to the speakers after they were done was like, wow.
And sharing what part of the story resonated with them. And I heard pieces of those conversations, and they were all just magical because each person took a little bit different side of the story because they saw it through the lens of their own experiences. But it hit home, when Christina talked about, being a mom and a partner and the burnout that was happening, there was multiple people, including myself, that could relate to almost every piece of her story. And then, Crystal talking about her daughter with absolute love and remembering that, it was a nurse that told her, you have everything you need within you to solve this. And, that's a pretty tough message to hear when you're hearing about a situation that, might mean that your daughter is going to go blind. And it's like, that's not great advice, or it didn't feel like it at the time, but it was exactly the advice we all need to hear at so many challenging and times in our lives. So, these messages they found a place in my body and my heart to stay with me, because when I come into these moments, I'm going to draw on their energy and their experiences to get me through those experiences.
Yeah. The one thing that was a common theme right across is, it was almost like expect the unexpected. Right? Because they went in thinking one thing, expecting a certain response, and they got the total opposite. Right? And because they got the opposite response, it elicited a different response inside of them, right? Whether it was Crystal, it was Christina, it was Alan, or even Tara. They all went in thinking this is the way it should be. And you're like, you guys are missing the stories. Like you should have been there last night. But they went into these situations thinking it was, in their heads, it was going to be a certain way. And then what came out of it was the complete opposite. Like they couldn't even have thought of it being the way it was. I know I'm being a little bit cryptic here because, I am, because they were so good.
And John, that was the crux of Tara's whole story is sometimes we're looking for the answers, and the answers are literally right in front of us, and we can't see it, even though it's ginormous in front of us. The story and the answer is right there in front of us. And I know I've had that moment in my life where I'm like circling around looking for the answer, and then I'm like, whoa, it's like it was right there and I couldn't see it. So the experience of life blinds us from seeing the beauty in it sometimes if we don't pause and get curious about life and about what am I saying yes to? What am I going to say no to? What would I do if I weren't afraid? Which was Alan's, tagline. And then, of course, what did he do? He told us what he did to get more afraid. He actually put himself in a position to be more afraid. It's like, who does that? Like, that is so inspiring.
Yeah, no, listen, yeah, fantastic. We can't go into the details of the story, but all I can say is it involves a desert. Okay, walking through the dunes in the desert. But yeah, it's almost and what also resonated and what was a common theme was when you say yes, right? You're facing the unknown, right? When you say yes, you're entering a space where you don't know the how, right?
Mm,
And none of them, in any other situation, in all other situations, was they didn't know the how.
no.
And they just said yes, and they're like, okay, let's just go. I think it was even one of Alan's lines, let go to go, right? And when you step into that and you let go of wanting to know the how and just do the do, like this is when things really start to open up for you.
That's right.
Right. And a lot of us, we live our lives and we think, well, I have to know this, or I have to put this in place. And you have to have the structure here, and I got to be able to do this. You don't need to do any of that.
No.
You just need to have a bigger vision of what it is you want for yourself in your life. And when you can step into that, that's when things really start to show up in a really big way, in a really beautiful way. And, that's what we got to see last night, was how, all of them are in much better spaces today than they were just a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's
Right.
because they said yes without knowing
Mhm.
the how, and they did it anyways, even though it scared the crap out of them. And that's, the action of taking that decision and moving forward. And even though you're scared, every one of them
Mm.
shared, and they actually shared where in their body was, like, they felt it on their chest or they felt it in their stomachs, this fear that came up. Or in Alan's case, he described it as like being in a car accident. Your seatbelt just
Mhm.
pulls you back.
Yeah.
That's how strong it felt in his body, this reaction. And oftentimes, as human beings, we hear these messages, they come to us in different formats, and we ignore them. We think, oh, that can't be the answer. It's too simple. Or that can't be the next career that I need to take. Or I can't leave my job because I'll never find another one like
Yeah.
this one. And we know that these are not the true answers. They're the answers of either our belief systems, our parents, society, all telling us how we should conform. And every single speaker last night said yes to not conforming to the beliefs of others, but to believe in themselves. And that I think is the power. Oh, I get goosebumps just saying that, just thinking about it. Like, it was so magical. And here's the other thing, John. We tell our story about how Say Yes came to be, and it's really a personal story. It's fun. You asked me to do a LinkedIn Live show. I said yes, so we called it the Say Yes movement. And the moment that we stopped making it about us, the moment that we started making it about everyone around us, that's when the true magic happened. So I am so glad that I said yes to you when you said, let's do a LinkedIn Live show, because the beauty that I'm now seeing in the world, because of the community that's coming together to say, I want to say yes to. I'm scared. There's things I want to accomplish. We're not alone. And that was what I took out of last night, is that we are not alone in trying to accomplish the best version of ourselves in our lives every single day.
Yeah.
And so for that, I'm extremely grateful for everyone that's been out there, but also to you, John. I'm extremely grateful.
Thanks. You're like, I'm getting all blushed and like, yeah, okay. We're live, right? So it's like, I can't go anywhere and hide and just gotta go do that thing. But thank you. Yes. No, listen, it's oh man. I'm it's kind of hard. I'm gonna lost for words for a second. It's incredible when you connect with the right people, right? And this has been years in the making, right? So what it might look like on the surface to everybody is that Heather and I just one day just decided to show up, and here we are. Like, we're doing a show. It didn't start that way, right? And even at one point, believe it or not, Heather and I were strangers. Like, we didn't know each other. We worked in an organization together, and we worked in different departments, so we didn't even cross paths in that space. And sometimes a connection that you make years ago can lead to something incredibly beautiful in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we are today. Like, but here's the thing, right? And this is for anybody who's thinking about, should I reach out to a certain individual? Should I just say hello? Like, if there's somebody of interest that you want to connect with, go connect with them.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think about, our story in specific is years ago, I loved what you were doing inside of the organization. I loved the energy that you had. I loved what you were putting out into the world. but I was nervous and uncomfortable. I wasn't saying yes to reaching out. I was saying, no, now's not the right time. Or maybe, what do I really have to offer? What can I really bring to the table in terms of, anything, right? Like, and that's where I was a few years ago. And here we are now, hosting a live event. We're hosting a podcast 3 times a week. And it's because I said yes to just, stepping out and being uncomfortable. And it's the same thing that I saw with all of our speakers yesterday. You have to step out to be uncomfortable and get yourself into a space that you've never been before. I know this is going to it's going to sound like such a small minor thing, but even yesterday, I stepped out of my normal clothing routine to put on something I would never wear. I'm like, oh man, like, can I do this? Am I going to do this? I even shared it with Roger yesterday. And he's like, no, man, you rock it, just go with it. Right. So sometimes
and
even
good, John, you look good.
So sometimes it's even like the smallest things that are in our head that we need to get over. Right. And, I'm incredibly grateful for our connection as well, being able to do this and serving the world in such a big way, right? Through not only the podcast, not only the live event, through the, being professors in the school, impacting students as well. We get to do it in such amazing big ways. And, our goal of hitting 1 million and impacting 1 million this year, I think we're gonna hit that number at some point, but we're getting there, right? So
exactly, it's the journey. It's the journey. It's the journey.
Yeah, and you never know where it's gonna take you. And that's the beautiful part. You have to be open to not knowing what's going to be in front. Ultimately, we know our path, right? Our biggest, our vision and mission. And this is what I saw with everybody. Everybody had a vision and mission for themselves in terms of what they wanted, but not knowing the how didn't dictate the path that they were going to take to get there. So they just trusted that the right things will show up. And, the one thing, and I know, when I say to people, you just got to trust the process. And whatever shows up because that's the way it needs to show up. And talk about having a moment of faith, right? We talk about faith, there's faith about, in the religious aspect, but just having faith and knowing that whatever it needs to will show up for you in the way it needs to show up. And, here we are, right? We did a live event yesterday and, wow, my heart's still full with just everything that, we've gone through and just, the people that came out to support as well. That part, incredibly, so special. Wow.
Absolutely. And I know the power of storytelling. Everyone and every single human. So if you're listening with us today, everyone has a story. We didn't have professional speakers on the stage. We have people that have spoken in front of audiences before, but they're not professional speakers. They're professionals in what they do, and they're professional humans. But we got them to tell their heart stories. We got them to tell a little piece and be really vulnerable in their storytelling. And we got to see them as human beings that we could relate to. And that's the beauty of storytelling. So, John, the Say Yes movement, that word movement is all about creating this movement of storytelling so that everyone in this world that's going through a challenging time, that's feeling the fear, that's not sure what that next step is, can look to someone else that's maybe done what they're about to do already and see inspiration, see that it's possible, see that the worst case scenario hardly ever happens. I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, and oftentimes I'm like, I wonder if I'll die this time. Well, guess what? I'm not dead yet. I'm still alive. So the worst didn't happen. And even if it did, what I always think is I lived my life to the fullest. And so are we living our life to the fullest? Are we just complacent in our possibilities? And I want to inspire everyone to just step into their next uncomfortableness so that their comfort zone expands. And that's the beauty of the Say Yes movement.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. Anyways, I'm lost for words, and we're at time anyways.
We're at time. We're at time.
We're at
So
time.
call to action. Here's
Yeah.
what everyone what we want everyone to do is if you were at our event last night, thank you for coming. Spend some time journaling about what came up for you in the event. If you didn't go to the event, that's okay. We gave you enough little tidbits, and I want you to just journal today about something that, if you said yes to it, it would change the course of your life. And what would that one thing be? And take one little action. Maybe it's just researching it on the internet. Maybe it's calling a friend and telling them about what you're thinking of doing. But take one action in the next 24 hours to get you closer to your say yes movement moment.
Yes, no, I love it. And listen, we are in the midst of planning for the next event, which will be in the next quarter. So if you are interested in being a speaker, and I know there are, so you can also reach out to us. And we're also looking for guests for our show. So if you're interested in being on our Friday show, celebrating our Celebration Fridays with us, drop us a line, drop us a note. We'd love to hear from you. All right, so that is it for this episode of the Say Yes Movement podcast. Just remember, when you shift your mindset, you shift your life. Wishing you all a great one. Talk to you soon.